Tonight, INEC bows to pressure from political parties on 2023 general elections timetable, extends primaries by 6 days, exercise now to end on June 9th, 2022. All set for PDP presidential primary tomorrow. Party slams INEC on its decision to adjust its election timetable, says the electoral umpire is changing rules in the middle of the game. And court rules that former President Goodluck Jonathan is eligible to contest in the 2023 presidential election, as he cannot be stopped by any retroactive law.
On business news tonight, G7 leaders call on OPEC to boost oil output amid high prices and economic slowdown.
And on sports news tonight, world number 1 Novak Djokovic beat Alias Bedeni 6-3, 6-3, 6-2 to edge closer to a potential quarterfinal meeting with rival Rafael Nadal at the French Open.
From Abuja, the president vows that his administration will step up efforts to ensure that every Nigerian child has access to education and is prepared for a bright future.
And in international news from London, police say a gunman who attacked a school in Texas on Tuesday was able to enter the building unobstructed.
The political scene is getting charged by the day ahead of the 2023 general elections. And amid all the intrigue, the Independent National Electoral Commission has bowed to pressure from political parties to adjust its timetable for the 2023 general elections. The electoral umpire has now extended party primaries by 6 days. In a statement, INEC explains the exercise will now end on June 9, 2022 instead of June 3rd. INEC's decision follows a meeting earlier today between its officials and the Inter-Party Advisory Council in Abuja. Our correspondent, Emperor Simon, reports.
The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, meets the leaders of various political parties in the country at the commission's headquarters in Abuja. At least 13 political parties are represented at this meeting, including the ruling All Progressives Congress APC, but conspicuously absent is the People's Democratic Party.
Requested.
The national chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council, IPAC, Mr. Yaba Gisani, appeals to the INEC chairman to allow political parties to use the 6-day period between 4th and 9th of June to conclude their primaries.
Kindly take a second look at the timetable, which we considered tight in respect of the fact that we are putting this electoral law 2022 to test for the first time, and the fact that anything you are doing for the first time, you may, make some mistakes.
This is not the first time political party leaders will be approaching INEC with a request. INEC had emphatically rejected the previous request to extend the timetable by 37 to 60 days. However, this time the Commission's chairman accepts to give the request a consideration.
The request the last time was for an extension of between 37 and 60 days. On this, the position of the Commission has not changed. It appears that the parties have now presented a modified request for what the chairman calls a little adjustment. We will now discuss further to understand the basis for requesting this little adjustment, and thereafter the Commission will meet and a statement will be issued.
And later in the day, INEC releases a statement announcing a 6-day extension for political parties to conclude their primaries. The statement reads, quote, "The Commission has decided to allow the request of the political parties since the 6-day period does not conflict with the next scheduled activity, which is the submission of the list of nominated candidates," end of quote. It, however, says the request is granted in respect of outstanding primaries only, without prejudice to those already concluded by political parties. The implication of this extension is that the June 3rd deadline will now be extended and perhaps give the parties time to resolve all legal and logistics problems that have arisen in the course of conducting their primary elections. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
You can't change the goalpost in the middle of the game. That's the response from the opposition People's Democratic Party in reaction to INEC's extension of the deadline for the conduct of the primaries. According to the party's spokesperson, Mr. Debo Olongba, the bedrock of democracy is certainty of elections. He was speaking at the venue of the primaries, where other members of the party's convention and venue committees were supervising the preparations for tomorrow's special national convention.
This arena that I'm standing right on is not new to competition. In fact, it was built for competition. Just right across me, about 300 meters, is the main bowl of the National Stadium, 60,000 capacity. But the venue for this convention is a much smaller velodrome, which is right here behind me. And I'm standing on the red carpet that the delegates and other party officials will walk in through. I am literally launching that red carpet. As you can see behind me, this venue is still under construction. You can see PDP National. They're still waiting to put up the letters that will make up the convention any moment from now. We have gone inside, and I can tell you that the boxes which will be used for the elections are being set up. The sound, the audio visuals, and all of that are being set up. In fact, going round, if you see the seats, you have cards that have numbers on them to tell which delegate will sit on what seat.
Earlier on, we spoke with Governor Samuel Otom and Amadu Fintiri, who are members of the planning and venue committees, on security plans and their expectations.
In preparing for tomorrow and next tomorrow, we want, as a venue committee, to ensure that security do not have any issue.
This area is a restricted area. We're going to block that entrance, and we have only entrance through just one side of the stadium. It's not like the Eagle Square, where you can scale the fence or where you can break barriers.
If you see the preparation, very excellent. We hope that the product that will be produced from the primaries tomorrow will be a credible one that will be able to take us into victory in the next year's presidential election.
It's also important to note that earlier on, I asked Mr. Debo Olongba about that meeting that INEC had with political parties, where the conversation around possibly postponing the deadline, that's the June 3rd deadline for the submission, or at least for the completion of the primaries, was raised, and INEC said, well, it's being considered.
Consequences will be great for the country, and of course we have to look at that in the global picture about what we need to do to democracy. Because the bedrock of democracy is certainty of elections, and the fact that the rules are clear to every participant, and that you cannot shift the goalposts in the middle of the game.
So the delegates will be seated on those designated seats, and from there they will make their way all the way to the main arena. And just right behind me, where you see this voting booth, they will cast their votes for the aspirant of their choice to elect the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party. Well, from the velodrome of the MKO Abiola Stadium here in the nation's capital, Abuja, Kayode Okikelu, Channels Television News.
And 2 days after dumping the People's Democratic Party, former governor of Anambra State, Mr. Peter Obi, has joined the Labour Party to pursue his political ambition, with the likelihood of contesting the presidency on the party's platform. In a statement, Mr. Obi gave reasons for exiting the PDP, which he explains border on issues that are at variance with his person and principles. The statement reads, according to Mr. Obi, who was also a guest on our political program, Politics Today, the party is the right platform that matches his aspiration and mantra of moving Nigeria away from a consuming nation to a productive one.
When you go into a relationship, in an association, you go in there for a reason. And if you feel that maybe the activities that you go on is at variance with your own person and your principles, the only thing you can do is to quietly and decently leave the place. If you have followed my mantra since I started this, I've always said Say the greatest tragedy of our country today is consumption and not production. It is sharing and not creating. I said I want to move the country from consumption to production. You just have to, from day one, show a clear destination that is feasible, measurable, people can believe in.
Meanwhile, Senate Minority Leader Eyinaya Abaribe has joined the list of politicians engaged in defection with his withdrawal from the People's Democratic Party to join the All Progressives Grand Alliance, APGA, on whose platform he intends to run for Senate. Senator Abaribe, who was a former governorship aspirant in Abia State, also resigned his position as the minority leader in the upper chamber of the National Assembly. The Federal High Court sitting in Yenagoa, Bayelsa State, has ruled that former President Goodluck Jonathan is eligible to contest the 2023 presidential election. Justice Issa Hamadashin, who gave the judgment today, held that Mr. Jonathan's right to vie for the office of president again cannot be stopped by any retroactive law. In the past weeks, there have been reports of the former president maybe throwing his hat into the ring to contest the presidency, but that became a matter of contention due to the constitutional provision which allows Nigeria's head of government to be elected to office for a fixed period of time known as tenure of 4 years from the date the oath of office is taken. This term is only renewable once through an election. On May 10, 2010, Mr. Jonathan, as Vice President, took the oath of office of the President to complete the tenure of President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua by reason of the latter's demise. As a result, the appellant, Syracuse Njoku, asked the court to decide whether the 2010 oath taken by Mr. Jonathan created a term of office envisaged under Section 137(1)(b). Staying with the judiciary, the Supreme Court today dismissed the appeal filed by former Minister of Transportation Chibuike Amaechi seeking to stop the probe of his administration over an alleged 96 billion naira fraud. In a lead judgment read by Justice Adamu Jairo, the Apex Court dismissed Mr. Amaechi's appeal on the grounds that the issue of not being given fair hearing does not arise as no one is on trial. Mr. Amaechi had prayed the Apex Court to prohibit Governor Nyesom Wike from investigating his 8-year tenure as governor of the state.
Nothing in this Supreme Courtroom gave away the judgment that will be delivered. As a matter of fact, it was pretty scanty, with many uncertain of the outcome of the efforts by the former Minister of Transportation, Mr. Rotimi Amaechi, to stop a probe into an alleged 96 billion naira fraud, an alleged fraudulent sale of valued assets belonging to River State by the incumbent governor, Nyesom Wike. Mr. Amaechi had prayed the Apex Court to prohibit the governor from investigating his 8-year tenure as governor of the state between 2007 and 2015. The former governor predicated his opposition to the probe on the ground that it was aimed at witch hunting, embarrassing and humiliating him in view of his political differences with his successor. Governor Wike, who constituted a 7-man panel to probe Mr. Amaechi, had asked the court to dismiss Mr. Amaechi's suit. The governor had maintained that the Commission of Inquiry, headed by Justice George Omekeji, was to look into how 96 billion naira was allegedly withdrawn from the treasury of the state government and how it was expended. The Commission of Inquiry, inaugurated by Governor Nyesom Wike, was also to look at the alleged sale of valuable assets of the state. The listed valuable assets are Omoko Gas Turbine, Afam Gas Turbine, Transamadi Gas Turbine, Eleme Gas Turbine, Olympia Hotel, and the award of contract for the execution of the monorail project. The Supreme Court, however, dismissed the suit filed by Mr. Amaechi and asked him to pay Governor Wike the sum of 1 million naira as costs.
In part two, after the break, we'll hear from the former Minister the former governor of Rivers State, Rotimi Amaechi, as he reacts to the Supreme Court dismissal of the appeal filed by the former minister, filed by the current governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike. And the governor himself says Rivers State leaders will determine the prosecution of the former Minister of Transportation over the 96 billion naira fraud during his administration. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. INEC bows to pressure from political parties on 2023 general elections timetable. All set for PDP presidential primary tomorrow. Party slams INEC on its decisions with justice election timetable, saying the election umpire is changing rules in the middle of the game. And a court rules that former President Goodluck Jonathan is eligible to contest the 2023 presidential election, as he cannot be stopped by any retroactive law. And of course, the police in Texas finally admit that the gunman in Tuesday's shooting entered the school unobstructed. The former Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amaechi, has been reacting to the Supreme Court judgment in respect of the Judicial Commission of Inquiry set up by the government to probe his administration. He explains in a statement that in dismissing the appeal, the Apex Court pronounced that the function of the Judicial Commission of Inquiry is mere investigative, that neither himself nor anyone else is on trial before the panel. He adds that the court is categorical and clear that he is not on trial and that any indictment from the commission is null and void and cannot stand the test of time, as he has been vindicated and cleared of all purported or alleged indictments by the commission. The state governor, Nyesom Wike, however, says the prosecution of the former minister over the alleged 96 billion naira fraud will depend on leaders of the state. Governor Nyesom Wike said this during a live broadcast after the Supreme Court dismissed the appeal filed by Mr. Amaechi over the probe.
It was a prompt reaction from Governor Nyesom Wike following the Supreme Court's judgment on the proposed 96 billion naira probe of former Minister of Transport, Mr. Rotimi Amaechi. The Apex Court had dismissed the appeal filed by Mr. Amaechi seeking to stop his probe over an alleged 96 billion naira fraud. For the governor, that decision vindicates the state government.
We gave everybody the opportunity. And some of them choose not to appear before the panel. Some of them appear before the panel. If you see that report, as a reverse man, you will cry. $50 million diverted from River State account of Access Bank to Sahara Energy. And the issue became, what did Sahara Energy do for us? What's the transaction? That we're paying, or we paid $50 million US. $50 million US. You say Sahara Energy bought our gas turbines? If they bought our gas turbines, why are we paying them $50 million? Borrow money from them. Where's the agreement to show we borrow money from them? Nothing. So it is for now the Supreme Court has come up with their judgment. The leaders of the state will decide what next step to take. It's not for only me. Yes, I'm the governor, but I can't do it alone. If the leaders of the state say, look, we must prosecute them, I have no choice.
The meeting with major stakeholders had in attendance former Governor Celestine Umehia and the Speaker of the State House of Assembly, Mr. Ikunyi Ibani, who believes there are lessons to be learned from the judgment. Governor Wike had constituted a 7-man panel through his council, maintaining that the Commission of Inquiry, headed by Justice George Amaechi, was to look into how 96 billion naira was allegedly withdrawn from the treasury of the state government and how it was expended. Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
In another judgment, the Supreme Court has dismissed a suit by a former Director General of the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, NMASA, Dakoko Peter side, seeking to set aside a 6 billion naira damages suit awarded against him for defaming the former Governor of Rivers State, Dr. Peter Odili. In a judgment read by Justice Adamu Joro, the Apex Court dismissed Peter side's appeal for lack of merit and upheld the decisions of the lower courts, which imposed a fine of 6 billion naira against Peter Side to be paid to Odili. Dr. Odili had in October 2016 taken Mr. Peter Side to court, claiming that Mr. Peter Side, during a press conference in Port Harcourt, alleged that Governor Nyesom Wike's Supreme Court election victory was hatched by him, based on the fact that Odili's wife was a justice of the Supreme Court. It is Children's Day after all, and Malpo Ogun-Yusuf joins us now to tell us all about it. The celebrations, I mean. Hi, Malpo.
Indeed, Amaechi. Hello, happy Children's Day to you and Nigeria's children and the inner child in us all. On this day, the president is promising Nigerian children that his administration will continue to work hard to ensure that every child has access to education which prepares them for a bright future. President Muhammadu Buhari made this pledge in a statement to commemorate this year's Children's Day, explaining that he recognizes the place of education in the development of every country and is committed to seeing a significant reduction in the number of out-of-school children. He maintains that other issues such as healthcare, protection from harm, drugs, cultism, child trafficking and abuse, and domestic violence are equally receiving needed attention from the government. President Buhari believes that Nigerian children deserve the best and a safe country where they can grow, make friends, interact and travel freely and emerge as successful leaders in different fields of endeavor. Meanwhile, addressing the challenges facing children in Nigeria will require urgent use of child-driven social interventions. The Vice President, Professor Yemi Oshibajo, made this assertion at the launch of 3 reports by UNICEF on the situations faced by Nigerian children. According to the report, of 6 deprivations, most children in Nigeria aged 0 to 17 years old face 3 deprivations at the same time, while half of Nigeria's children live below the national poverty line. Our State House correspondent, Kayla Megwa, reports.
It is Children's Day again, and the plight of the Nigerian child is in focus again. The United Nations Children's Fund, in collaboration with the Ministry of Finance, has released 3 reports detailing this plight: a situation analysis of children in Nigeria, the multidimensional child poverty analysis in Nigeria, and the monetary child poverty analysis in the country. All 3 reports show that the Nigerian child is in a state of emergency.
The objective of the studies were to provide an evidence-based analytical report on the situation of children in the country, disseminate information on poverty dynamics, as well as child income poverty in Nigeria.
Children aged 0 to 17 years old make up 52% of Nigeria's 206.7 million population. And yet, poor policies and an inability to protect this demographic has placed 2 million Nigerian children under acute malnutrition, according to UNICEF. 14 million children in Nigeria are in child labor. 23 million Nigerian female children are child brides, the highest in all of Africa. 60% of children under 18 are victims of violence. 10.2 million Nigerian children are out of school, while 65.7% of Nigeria's children in rural areas experience multidimensional poverty. Representatives from the United Nations proffer solutions to this situation.
The effective implementation alongside increased, efficient and sustainable public investment remains at the core for fulfilling the rights of the children in Nigeria.
The Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, admits that Nigeria has vast grounds to cover and with urgency. He calls for more child-driven interventions.
The federal government will continue to lead the charge, and our commitment and work in this regard will be all the more data-driven, helped along in no small way by the reports that are going to be presented today. There is a dire need to increase children-focused interventions, especially where challenges of insecurity persist, and we need every hand on deck.
Precious a gift as children are, they do not survive on hugs and kisses. Their future must be secured, and to do this, Nigeria must balance population growth with national development growth. Without this balance, dismal figures such as these ones released by UNICEF itemizing a constant decline in the quality of life of the Nigerian child will continue. And as the Vice President notes, when this happens, the country is diminished and its leadership indicted. Kayla Magua, Channels Television News.
Well, some pretty grim figures there, but still ahead on the news at 10, we have more on the Children's Day celebration, plus G7 leaders call on OPEC to boost oil output amid high prices and economic slowdown. That's on Business News. Do join us again. Welcome back to the news at 10. As part of Children's Day celebration, Dufil Prima Foods PLC, makers of Indomie instant noodles, has hosted 100,000 members of the Indomie Fans Club aged 4 to 12 at the amusement park in Apapa, Lagos, as well as other venues nationwide. Now, during the celebration, wife of Lagos State Governor Dr. Ibijoke Sanwo-Olu urged children to keep studying hard and called on more organizations to toe the same line as the Indomie Fans Club so children can have memorable celebrations annually.
Members of the Indomie Fans Club stormed the amusement park at Papa as excitement was at peak to celebrate the 2022 Children's Day. They served their delicious Indomie noodles. Little did they know the surprise Indomie had for them as they met and celebrated the day with the First Lady of Lagos State, Dr. Mrs. Ibijoke Sanwo-Olu. After going round the park, the First Lady then gives a motherly charge.
We are equally committed to the social welfare initiatives to care for the members of the lower rung of the society. To our children too, please continue to be the best in what you can be. Don't be discouraged or distracted by anything. Focus on your studies and always uphold sound character and fear of God.
Just as top executives of Indomie explained the rationale behind the humongous celebration.
Indomie Fan Club has a lot of activity for our clubs, for our club members. We have the road safety exercise, we have the graduation, we have the indoor activity, and this day we celebrate our children especially.
We've also had this happening simultaneously in different parts of the country. We're having same in Ogun State, we're having in Oyo State, we're having in Lagos, we're having in Abuja, and all these children are having fun, children are relating with the brand.
Singing and dance competitions followed, as well as choreographic display by members of Indomie Fans Club.
What I did today was fun, and what I experienced was that this place that I went today was awesome, and I enjoyed myself.
If it is up to these kids, the celebration will not come to an end, but it is such a sight to see excitement on all of our future.
Well, I know that this is certainly one brand that appeals to the inner child, and even in adults. Amaechi, would that include you?
Oh, yes, I do have an inner child, Malba, and I boldly claim it. I admit that I do have an inner child. Thanks again. Well, here in Lagos, I have joining me now legal practitioner and child rights advocate and specialist on child forensic, Mrs. Bisi Ajayi Kayode. Thank you so much for being here on Children's Day.
You're welcome.
And I'm sure that you and the kids had so much fun. I think children look forward to May 27th every year because they know no school. Parents are obliged to take them somewhere to the amusement parks and places like that. Yeah. But do you think they even understand, what the theme of the day is? Like, do they sit for a minute to even think about, okay, why are we even doing this?
Yes, over the years with increased awareness, children are becoming more focused, seeing themselves end up with their own fundamental human rights. Gone are those days that they just recede into silence and just go by the adult rules. Now they are more vocal, more outspoken because of awareness creation by child-focused organizations. For example, at the Sierra Foundation, each time we go for awareness prevention training programs for children under Safe Kids Awareness Program, we let them know that they have rights. And under the UN conventions, down to the Child Rights Act, children are not just recipients of instructions and care. They are government agencies and should be treated as such.
Wow, that's interesting. That sounds very empowering for any child who hears that. And I suppose that's what the theme for this year is, a better future for every child. I understand 8 states are yet to domesticate the Child Rights Act. And as a result, children in those states are still subject to practices like early marriage, female genital mutilation, and then begging. But what is the situation in the states that have domesticated the Child Rights Act? What is the improvement in those states?
Okay, there is increased awareness, increased accountability, and increased capacity building for children. And for the states that have not domesticated them, there's no way you can take any legal action for such violations because they are not domesticated into laws. So there's increased awareness creation, people are speaking now, then increased collaboration between government agencies and non-government agencies.
Right, and how can stakeholders outside of government help, to change the narrative that, children have been facing, these many problems, and yet they still look up to adults who should know better on how to handle their problems?
Yeah, a single agency cannot ensure child protection. There has to be interagency collaboration with a multidisciplinary team approach. As the way we canvass it at the Sierra Foundation, all child-focused professionals will come together in collaboration with grassroots communities and faith-based organizations. It's never the responsibilities of children to protect themselves or to empower themselves. It's the sole responsibility of adults. So all hands must be on deck. We must not just rely on the government alone, but we must all play our individual roles. And we cannot do this if we are not empowered.
Indeed, we have to empower ourselves and empower the children as well. Mrs. Bisi Ajayi Kayode, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
And happy Children's Day to the inner child in you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And it's time for business news. Here's Melinda Akinlami.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first. First Bank.
Many thanks, Amaechi. Welcome to Business News. G7 leaders have asked OPEC to increase oil supply amid high prices that are hitting consumers and threatening an economic slowdown. The call on OPEC to boost supply is the latest to the cartel from oil importing nations. The G7 energy ministers also stressed that the European Union needs to cut its heavy reliance on Russian gas as a matter of special urgency. The group says LNG supply will play an important role in reducing potential supply disruptions of pipeline gas in Europe. Some company news now. Stanbic IBTC's Purchasing Managers Index PMI for April was at 55.8, up from 54.1 in March. This signaled a sharp improvement in business conditions in Nigeria's private sector. The panel indicates that growth has now been seen in each of the last 22 months, with the latest uptick quicker than the long-run series average. Central to the improvement was an accelerated uptick in new orders. The overall rate of expansion was marked and the third quickest in the current 22-month sequence of growth. Subsector data revealed expansions across the board, though agriculture recorded the quickest expansion. Wholesale and retail, manufacturing and services followed respectively. To cater for higher output volumes, firms increased their buying activity in April. Stocks of purchases also rose, and at a quicker pace too than in March. Turning to prices, Russia's invasion of Ukraine increased costs for a wide range of raw materials as well as fuel. Firms also indicated higher transportation fees. Nigeria's private sector output continued to rise in April, stretching the current sequence of growth to 17 months. New business received by companies rose further in April, as according to panel members of Stanbic IBTC. Overall input prices rose substantially at the start of the second quarter, with the pace of inflation accelerating from the figure recorded in March. Around 54% of firms reported higher purchase costs in April, while less than 1% saw a decline. Staff costs at private sector companies rose in April to signal 16 successive months of inflation. Around 41% of firms raised their selling prices in that month, while just over 2% reduced them. Higher input costs reportedly led firms to hike selling prices in April. For future output index, sentiment among Nigerian private sector firms remained firmly in positive territory. At the equities market, Airtel Africa led gains today as the all-share index and market cap hit new records. Laddie Williams has the details.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, the local bourse gave us quite a dramatic week, at the same time a new level, and that's the 54,000, a level last seen 14 years ago. Talking about new marks, the equity cap crossed the 29 trillion level for the first time ever. Today, 208 million units of stocks were traded in 4,898 deals valued at 5.52 billion naira. But the news that investors in the Nigerian capital market had earned over 1 trillion naira in dividends payout by companies listed on the NGX. This could be spurring those not invested to get some skin in the market. And it seems MTN Nigeria and Airtel Africa took turns this week, with Airtel Africa on the top Guinness list, up 9.89%, adding 150 naira to its share price. We also have Q-Tix and Wema Bank on that list. While Nigerian breweries led about 17 losers to close at 69 naira 30 kobo per share. Well, the market gained about 503 billion naira today and over 1 trillion naira gained this week. Quite an incredible week for the market, even though most analysts thought the MPC, raising rates would negatively impact the market. But I guess the bulls had other plans. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Laddie Williams. It's back to you.
That's business news. It's back to you, Amaechi.
Thanks, Belinda. Coming up next, police say the gunmen who attacked a school in Texas on Tuesday entered the building unobstructed. We'll have more on the following scene. Join us again. Welcome back. Simon Pusey has the day's foreign stories and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Police say the gunman who attacked a school in Texas on Tuesday was able to enter the building unobstructed.
He had just shot his grandmother in the face.
Texas Ranger Victor Escalon said no armed guard challenged the teenager attacker, and it is unclear if the school door was even locked. Police have also revised key details about Tuesday's deadly school shooting as criticism mounts from parents over the initial response. Police now say the gunman roamed outside the Uvalde school for 12 minutes before entering unchallenged, a contradiction from earlier statements where they said the attacker was confronted and shot at by an officer. He killed 19 children and 2 teachers before he was shot dead 90 minutes after he first arrived.
It was reported that a school district police officer confronted the suspect that was making entry. Not accurate. He walked in unrestricted initially. So from the grandmother's house to the bar ditch to the school, into the school, he was not confronted by anybody. To clear the record on that. 4 minutes later, law enforcement are coming in to solve this problem.
Meanwhile, Meghan Markle made a surprise visit to a memorial set up for the 21 victims of the Texas elementary school massacre. The wife of Prince Harry was seen observing a row of headstones at the memorial pensively before being escorted into a vehicle. A spokesperson for Mrs. Markle confirmed the visit and said the mother of 2 had extended her condolences and support to the Texas community. Ukrainian officials say Russian-backed forces have taken control of the city of Lyman in Ukraine's eastern Donetsk region. Lyman is the site of a key railway hub and has long been a target for pro-Russian forces. The city's mayor says 60% of the housing is completely destroyed and up to 90% of buildings are damaged. Heavy fighting is also ongoing on the outskirts of Severodonetsk as Russian troops try to capture the city, which is under almost continuous shelling. Ukraine's Ministry of Defense shared this video using the caption, "Russian shelling Ukrainian positions in the Donetsk region. This is what the largest and most horrific war of the 21st century looks like. Ukraine is ready to strike back. To do this, we need NATO-style MLRS immediately." An energy partnership has been signed between Germany and the United States, including expanding offshore wind power generation and cooperation on using hydrogen. Climate ministers of the G7 are meeting in Berlin to discuss globally spiralling energy costs sparked by the war in Ukraine. The conflict triggered a scramble among some countries to buy more non-Russian fossil fuels and burn coal to cut their reliance on Russian suppliers, raising fears that the crisis could undermine efforts to fight climate change. The United Nations Security Council has renewed an arms embargo on South Sudan by another year. The UN's resolution to extend the ban through May next year was passed with 10 out of 15 votes, with Gabon, Kenya, India, Russia and China abstaining. The Council also extended targeted sanctions against South Sudanese individuals. South Sudan has protested against the US-drafted resolution as unfair to what they call the people of South Sudan who suffer under the cruelty of the UN sanctions and arms embargo. A Twitter investor is suing Elon Musk and the social media platform over the handling of the billionaire's $44 billion bid for the company. The case alleges he violated California corporate laws in a number of ways. It accuses the Tesla boss of wrongful conduct, as his false statements and market manipulation have created chaos at Twitter's headquarters in San Francisco. Twitter shares are around 27% lower than Mr. Musk's offer price. And finally, from a replica coronation dress to a beaded evening gown, an array of replica outfits worn by Queen Elizabeth have gone on show at London's Madame Tussauds. The famed attraction is showcasing 7 gowns spanning Elizabeth's coronation in 1953 until more recent times as part of the Royal Dress Collection display. It's all part of a special display marking the monarch's Platinum Jubilee. The outfits include a coronation gown created by Joan Tussaud, great-granddaughter of Marie Tussaud, who founded the famed Wax Museum. Also on show is an Order of the Garter mantle, ceremonial robes first seen on the Queen's wax figure in 1956. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
And the main news again. The Independent National Electoral Commission today adjusted the timetable for the 2023 general elections and extended the party primaries by 6 days. That is the news at 10 tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Amaechi Ubani. Good night.